So just so this video won't be extra long, because I was gonna do part 1, 2, 3, and 4 all in one, but I don't want the video to be that long. So, because I know I'm gonna talk, so I'm just gonna do part 1 and part 2, right? Um, Janet Jackson. So secretly, we didn't know Janet Jackson had been having a film crew follow her since 2017, since the beginning of her tour, I believe. And they follow her for the next 5 years, y'all. So that's so good. I love when artists take these kind of ideas, these things into their own hands. Especially huge artists. Because eventually somebody gonna do some kind of unauthorized biopic about you, and you already know it's gonna be a hot mess, right? So I just love the fact that she did this and we didn't know about it. Janet's very private and stuff anyway. So yes, I appreciate that. So the first thing that we see is Randy Jackson. Randy and Janet was very close. They are the closest in age. As you know, Janet is the youngest girl, the youngest in general. And Randy is the youngest boy. And she says the order goes girl, 3 boys, girl, 3 boys, girl. I'm not. I used to. I could probably Google it, but I'm not gonna do that. On who's the oldest to the youngest, because I always thought Tito was the oldest, but then I found out no, Tito wasn't the oldest. It's Reby. Then is it Jackie? Reby, Jackie, Tito. Reby, Jackie, Tito. I'm not even gonna do it. But anyway, so yeah. Randy, he's a great narrator. He was talking a lot in here. They visited their home back in Gary, Indiana. And we saw the home, and back then when you're a child, things look differently than when you are an adult. And I said that they slept in the living room, the girls. So Latoya, Reby, and Janet slept in the living room. They had a very small kitchen. They had a total of 9 kids. I believe it was Marlon who had a twin who passed away, so it would have been 10 of them. So the girls slept in the living room. Then the guys, they had their own room. It was 6 boys. So 6 boys, 3 girls, and they slept in bunk beds. Like, I think Randy said that Marlon, Michael, and him slept on the middle bunk, and they all slept in the same bed. And then the oldest 2, they slept on the top. And, it was, I can only imagine. Joe Jackson worked in the mill. And Catherine Jackson, she worked at Sears, I believe, the clothing store. So, they did the best that they could. They noticed that their kids had talent. Catherine noticed it first. And then Joe, he just sprung it along. And my God. Janet didn't talk a lot about because she was the youngest, right? So I don't think she experienced a lot of the wrath of Joe Jackson. We all heard the stories and stuff, but I don't think she experienced it a lot because she was little. And they talked about him being a big disciplinarian and all that, but yeah. I don't doubt that he and of course Miss Catherine love their kids, and they grew up in the 60s and 70s, and things were not the best back then, especially for black folks. And so, he didn't want his kids on drugs. He didn't want his kids to be in gangs and all that was, around them and stuff. So he saw the kids had a little talent. He was like, child, I'm going to work that talent. And work that talent he did. The Jacksons, they auditioned for Berry Gordy in 1968. And child, the rest is history. They was everywhere. Janet says that she remembers her brothers always auditioning. She always wanted to be with her brothers. But because they were older and always on the road, she didn't get that much time to spend with them and stuff. So, she missed them. It seemed like Janet was a little bit closer. One thing I've noticed about big families with siblings, it fluctuates sometimes. Like, sometimes you're closer to one sibling or two siblings over the rest of them, you know. And as time goes on, you fluctuate. So it's like these people used to be real close to, you still love them, they're your family, but now you talk more to these, you know. It's interesting. It's how, you know, families work a lot of times. So, but it seems like growing up, Janet was a lot closer to her brothers than her sisters. I think, you know, because she was kind of like a tomboy and stuff. So, yeah. Um, let's see. The Jacksons, they auditioned. They got their own little show in Vegas. I didn't even know that, in Las Vegas, where they were performing and stuff. They were the only kids that was around. And then that's when they ended up introducing Janet to the whole fold. She was a little girl, and you know, they had their own show, and it was just what a vision. What a vision Joe Jackson had. Like, my God. And dare I say, if had he not, you know, been so strict on them, would they have turned out that same way or as good as they wanted to be? Who's to say? Who's to say? But there is a fine line, you know, and they are superstars, all of them. And they are all rich and famous, and they are incredibly talented, and we thank God, at least I do, for the Jacksons. The Jackson family was the first black musical family that I've ever known, that I've ever inspired and looked up to, and was like, yo, look at them, look at her, you know, like that means so much, you know. Throughout this documentary, I was getting emotional at times, especially later on when they started talking about Michael. But you know, it's just so much black history, and it's just so, it's so important. Representation is everything. If we did not see, and no matter what race you are, if you did not see people that look like you, that was out there doing things that you wanted to do, how could you know that it was possible to do? And so that's the Jackson family. They just represent, you know, so much greatness. But anyway, so yeah, I forgot where I was going, but they had their own Vegas review, and Janet, she got the role a little after that, when she got a little older, for Good Times, which was a you know, great opportunity for her. You know, she played Penny, and shouts out to God, I should have wrote her name down, but shouts out to Sis, who played Janet Jackson's mother in Good Times. That's Kim Fields' mom. So shouts out to her. That's another legend. Just so good, right? So that was that, and what else happened? She said that she did not want to do Fame. Y'all know she was on Fame with my mind. She was on Fame with Felicia Rashad sister. What? I literally just had her on my mind, and now like it's blank right now, but she said she did not want to do Fame for some reason. You know, as the boys got older, they decided to get rid of Joe as their manager. And then you know, once the boys got rid of Joe, he was just like, okay, well, let me get Janet. I got my little baby girl, so let me get her to be the superstar. And Janet said she wanted to go to law school. She didn't want to be, you know, a singer and stuff. And so I think that's a part of the reason why those first two albums that she put out didn't do well, because it wasn't her material. It wasn't anything that she wanted to do. It was just Joe and the label, the image they had for her, all that kind of stuff. Yes, around that time, she met James DeBarge. Her and James DeBarge, you know, they grew up together. He comes from the famous DeBarge family. Feel the beat and the rhythm of the night, dancing to the morning light. Forget about the words of your life. You can leave it all behind. So, you know, they met, and I think LaToya was in a relationship with one of the DeBarges. And so, you know, met Janet, and she liked him. And I think he was maybe a little bit older than her, maybe. Maybe they're the same age. But I don't think so. I think maybe he was like 1 or 2 years older. Anyway, she wanted to escape the control of the Jacksons, aka Joe. And so she decided the only way to get out of that situation is to get married. So she got married to James DeBarge. Didn't nobody know. Rebe O'Neill, who looks just like Janet. She said that hell, she didn't even know that Janet was married until they was married. I was like, oh hey, this is my husband. Okay. You know, the family was just like, what's going on? But they let her do her thing, let her make her own mistakes, let her make her own decisions. At this point, she was like 18, I'm assuming. And so, you know, unfortunately, as we know from the DeBarges, that a lot of them was on drugs, and he was on drugs heavily. A lot of times he would leave her and gone about his business. You know, she couldn't focus on work because she was worried about him the entire time, and you know, she dealt with it until she couldn't anymore. She got an annulment, and the marriage lasted 1 whole year, and after that she was done. Miss Jackson called it a day, and you know, bless her heart. After that, she needed a new change. She needed something to do. Also, I want to talk about before I move on, is that they dealt with a lot of racism and stuff. And I can only imagine what Joe Jackson went through, right? They moved to a home in an affluent neighborhood in Los Angeles in the 70s and early 70s. And y'all know, child, they was not featuring black folks back then. And especially in certain neighborhoods, they said there was petitions to get them removed out of the neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. And Joe Jackson being the head of the family, and I'm sure him having to deal with racism constantly and dealing with, you know, white men who say and you know, who have the control and still do in this world. And you know, I can only imagine him trying to keep it together and still be there for his family and show love for his family, but probably having a hard day. And Catherine, it's a lot. There is some kind of strength that comes with black folks that comes from within, because otherwise it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's exhausting. Anyway, cut to like 1985. That's when she met Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the famous producers who's worked with so many incredible people. They were with The Time, which is Morris Day and The Time. And, you know, that's how they met Janet. And she reached out to them. She said she wanted a whole new thing, you know. And she also reached out to Paula Abdul. She was a choreographer for the Laker Girls. I didn't know that. And I knew she was a choreographer, but I didn't know she was, you know, choreographer for the Laker Girls and all that good stuff. So Janet, you know, and they was compared a lot back in the day. Y'all know Paula had her own recording career. Actually, I looked at, I said this like years ago on Facebook, that, and maybe it was just an 80s thing, but Janet, Lisa from the Cult band, and Paula Abdul, they all looked like 3 different races, but they all looked alike in the face and stuff and hair, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy. Anyway, so her and Paula built a relationship, and that's when Control happened, which was, you know, the start of Janet's musical career blossoming. Control, it did well. They were shocked at how well it did, and Janet was on her way up, child. You know, after that, hits came from Control, and they was excited about it. Let me see, is there anything else I want to talk about? Shortly after the whole Control thing, in 1987, that's when she met Renee, her second husband, child. They got married. I think they got married. Her second husband, Renee, who's a photographer and controlling as hell. But with that said, this video is long enough, and I'm going to end this video. Y'all stay tuned for part 3 and 4, child. Ooh. Woo! Tell me in the comment section what y'all think about everything, child. It was so good. It was so good. Anyway, I'm MrChalaki. MrChalaki on Google Plus. Follow me at SKingsWorld on Instagram and Twitter, at SKingsWorld89 on Snapchat, King on Facebook, MrChalaki on Cash App and PayPal. And as always, run me my money, or run me my fade. Run me my money the way I get paid. Stay black, stay tuned, and I'll see you guys later.